Alright, so briefly just before this video starts, I apologize if I sound different. I'm currently on the outset of recovery of some strep throat, so yeah. Anyways, enjoy the rest of the video. Alright, Formula 1, I should not have to introduce this sport if you are watching, but let's give a brief overview. So, 2024, what a season. With multiple race winners, a championship that was obviously always going to win to Max, but it was actually kind of interesting to see how it was going to progress as the months went by, and honestly there was quite a bit of on-track and off-track action as well. I don't think 2025 will see the same heights, but let's hope. The purpose of this guide today is to explain to those who may not be familiar with Formula 1 how everything works from the drivers, teams, tracks, and maybe something else thrown in at the later end. Formula 1 has a points system, which has changed and is still changing as the years progress. Presently, the points for this year are on screen, with the fastest lap gone, rest in peace. Throughout the season, each driver accumulates the points, and whoever gets the most points wins the championship, some championships more controversial than others. So, Formula 1 has had many teams over the years, under different names. We've had 10, we've had 12, and in 2026 we will have 11, but that's for a little later to discuss. These teams also get points as well, as with 2 drivers per team, they take the points each driver gets. So technically a driver can win a championship, but a constructors, which is what the teams are called, can win. The teams are as follows. Ferrari. Ferrari has been there since the start of the sport in 1950. They are respected, but their current lineage has not reached the peaks of Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher is the second most successful driver in F1, just behind Lewis Hamilton, with the pair both having 7 world championships each. And yes, I say 7 for Hamilton. 2021 was not stolen, please get over it for the love of God. But I've slightly jumped ahead a little bit. Where were we? Yes, Hamilton now races for Ferrari for this year, and because Ferrari, this is a team that is very Italian based. And the team Hamilton has come from is Mercedes. Now talk about a team of dominance, making up 6 of his 7 world championships. The German-based team were dominant during the late 2010s, like crazily dominant. But hey, that's the sport. Some teams make Super Bowls every year, and some teams don't even make the playoffs. McLaren is the team that Hamilton won his first championship with back in 2008, a company that was founded by a Kiwi that is based in the UK, which definitely annoys quite a decent number of us. Recently, the McLaren looks potentially set to be dominant once again, as they were with Ayrton Senna back in the 1980s/90s. Then we get Red Bull Racing, one of the teams that advertises the energy drink, but in actuality is just an excuse to drive fast cars. Fair enough. They've been a sort of off and on again team, with Sebastian Vettel getting 4 championships, and Max Verstappen getting 4 championships as well. They're pretty good, but Adrian Newey has left the team this year, so there's a chance that they'll slump even further. And the team that has swooped in and got Newey was Aston Martin. Yes, that Aston Martin, aka the James Bond guy himself. And with Lord of the Eyebrows Fernando Alonso, a 2-time champion, as their main driver, it is a solid team, but Daddy's Cash definitely gets the other driver a seat, but that's for later. Next we get Racing Bulls, or VCarb, or AlphaTauri, or Minardi, or RB, or just known as the Junior Red Bull team. I shall call them RB for the purpose of this video. The whole purpose of RB is it allows drivers to go through this team as it is a junior team, and if they're good enough, Helmut Marko will look at you and then say, sure, you're good enough for the big team. Unless of course you're Sonoda. A team that is basically at the lead of the midfield. And right behind RB is Haas, currently the only American team this year, but that'll change next year with Cadillac. Used to be run by Fox Smash door Gunther Steiner, but he has since been removed. A team that has results, but has had some shocking drivers like Mazepin. Still yet to get anything above P5 in the Constructors' Championship. Alpine comes next, the French team, and being typically French, they don't work most of the time. A team that features heavily in the Netflix documentary series Drive to Survive for some stupid reason. I'm not sure why, maybe they've got bargaining power of the Netflix executives. A team that if the engine doesn't explode, they crash. And if they don't crash, they get podiums. Williams, our penultimate team, one that has got quite a number of championships won for the team. From Nigel Mansell to Keke Rosberg to, oh no, Jacques Villeneuve. Ugh. They've had quite a good lineage. A team that fell very hard from grace and has only really gotten back up in steam in the past few years. Really fast on the straights for some reason, although it is due basically to the fact that they don't have a good car to begin with, literally being designed in Excel. Finally, we have Sauber, a team that really just exists in the F1 roster just to give 10 teams, with points happening not really that often. Notoriously a car that is very slow and doesn't handle good, likely to be renamed or merged with another team soon. And I'm gonna call them Kick Sauber for the rest of this video. I know they're called like Steak or something, but the team name changes every time, and sometimes the team name changes like depending upon the country. So then, that's all the 10 teams discussed, but that means that we have 20 drivers to discuss, as each team has 2 drivers. I know, simple arithmetic. Starting at the top, we have Maximilian Verstappen, the Dutch guy for Red Bull, and honestly, he has the potential to get as many championships as Schumacher and Hamilton. He is very talented in the rain, last year going from 17th to P1 during Brazil, which was a crazy result on top of a crazy race. Gets way too much hate. Yes, he's a bit aggressive, but all the drivers are during the races, it's just that everyone seems to dogpile on him because Dutch. Charles Leclerc is next, the driver from Monaco, and the driver cursed to never win at Monaco. Oh wait, he won there last year. Good for him. Lead driver for Ferrari, the fangirls go crazy for him with the Jesus images, look at it. But honestly, deserved. Look at all these photos. This is what you call pure Italian spirit. Even though Charles Leclerc is not from Italy, but Monaco is basically right there anyway, so it technically counts as... He has the potential for a championship, just the car keeps failing under him, as well as poor strategy from Ferrari, but that's well known. Now we get Lando Norris, the Brit who couldn't win, then proceeded to win a few races last year. As lead driver for McLaren, he had a good chance to beat Verstappen, but after a few incidents, he fell short of that mark. A driver that gets way too much hate, although some of the people he indirectly supports doesn't exactly enlighten me to him so much. Next up we have Liam Lawson, the Kiwi from America. No, seriously bro, please just come back here at least once and don't just go up to Auckland and stay up there, please, you're a New Zealand driver, represent New Zealand, come see the rest of us, please. He's over there so often, he should basically just race under the US flag. It should not be news that you are back home. Although to be fair, I think he's basically over there because of his girlfriend who has political ideologies that I do not subscribe with, but anyways, that's not for this video. A standout when he had to fill reserve roles for Daniel Ricciardo and then eventually replaced him last year. Was promoted from RB to Red Bull before Tsunoda, which got quite a few people angry. Lawson's just a chill guy though, even shown in his driver logo. Interested to see how he goes this year. Sir Lewis Hamilton, one of the only ever F1 drivers to be knighted, is the most successful driver in F1 history, with a whopping 105 race wins and 7 championships. Definitely the greatest story of all time. He started out with literally nothing, but with pure skill and talent and many hours of hard work by his father, he became a major player, almost winning the championship in 2007, his first ever year in F1, which is insane. He leaves Mercedes after over 10 years in the car, and I don't think he's going to stop winning until he gets his 8th championship. I can feel it. Surely Hamilton wins in Ferrari red, praying hands right now. And Carlos Sainz is who Hamilton is replacing at Ferrari, causing Carlos Sainz to go to Williams of all teams, which will certainly be interesting to see. There isn't exactly a lot I can say for Sainz, except that when he wins greatly, being quite a smooth operator indeed. Interested to see how he goes this year. Oscar Piastri, the second driver from McLaren and our first Aussie of this list. And he's actually quite a great driver. While his first one was a bit controversial, he has shown that if given the go-ahead, he could definitely outscore Lando this year. Got quite a good number of reaction images and videos from him last year. Let's see if we can get some more. I'm not joking, by the way. Let's just look at the video that I got from Twitter. Literally, there's like a different reaction face every video. And because of Hamilton's departure, George Russell, the previous second driver for Mercedes, is now the lead driver. See, now I can't say a major deal for his own driving skill. He sort of falls into that Sainz camp of winning spectacularly when he does, and sort of just existing when not so. Interested to see how he goes this year being the lead man. We need more T-poses. Like, please, we need more T-poses. And Kimi Antonelli now steps into the second driver position at Mercedes. He's a guy that literally got his driver's license after being signed on, which is kind of funny when you think about it. I really can't say for how he's expected to go this year. He's shown pace in pre-season testing, but that's all I can really say. He hasn't raced in F1 before, so it should be interesting to see how he goes. Next up we get our oldest rookie on the grid, Fernando Alonso. Just look at him. Indeed, he is the Lord of the Eyebrows, and he drives like a god in the bad cars that he's been given. I'm pretty sure he'll stay in F1 until he gets his third world championship. I think he's thinking of trying to get for Red Bull, which would be really funny indeed. Just Lord, please give him a good car this year with Adrian Newey at Aston Martin, please. And speaking of Aston Martin, we get Lance Stroll. And as much hate as this driver gets, it's slightly justified. He got into the sport using daddy's cash, and while he's had standout performances from the Racing Point days, he really has dropped the ball in the past few years. Notably spinning off the track, then beating himself in the gravel at Brazil. Like, how do you even manage that? All I'm gonna say is, another driver deserves his seat. Yuki Tsunoda, lead driver for RB since 2021, he's always wanted to go to Red Bull but never quite reaches the mark for BS reasons by Helmut Marko, overseer of both teams. He's honestly a solid driver, getting points consistently. Looking forward to see how he goes this year, and he's likely looking at potentially being Stroll's replacement, because I think he wants to leave the team because of the Honda sponsorship. It's all a bit of politics that I can't really discuss here. Isaac Hadjar joins Yuki Tsunoda in RB, and I'm interested to see how he goes this year, seeing as he almost won the F2 championship in 2024. I can't really say a lot for him, except for the fact that he's got really fast reflexes from Monaco last year. Pierre Gasly, lead driver for Alpine, is next. A former driver for RB and Red Bull, he's always sort of been there, yet somehow got the tractor onto the podium twice. A French driver and a French team, surely no controversy will happen this year, surely. Jack Doohan is going to be the second driver for Alpine, and he is destined to be booted by the 5th race of the season for reasons that I'll discuss shortly. Not much to say on Doohan except he's our second Aussie on the grid, and has promise, even if cut short. Please just let him at least just race to like the 12 races, please. Esteban Ocon, former driver for Alpine, who was unfairly kicked at the last race last year, now drives for Haas. French driver for American team, oh god, that's totally not going to cause any political issues. Fun fact, Esteban Ocon is the tallest on the grid, standing at a whopping 1.86 meters tall. Oh my, that is actually quite tall indeed. Honestly, a really likable guy, looking forward to seeing how he does. And joining Ocon is Oliver Bearman, and considering his previous appearances because of being a reserve driver, he has strong promise indeed. And his driver logo goes hard, look at it, that's just so strong. Bearman is actually quite a likeable guy as well. I really do hope Haas succeeds. Alex Albon, the British driver who races under the Thailand flag, is the main driver for Williams, having joined after running in Red Bull and RB with varying results. Williams is the perfect team for him, usually getting points every race, and once qualified highly in a Williams, no easy feat mind you. But he's likely to be relegated to second driver with Sainz in the running now. Nico Hülkenberg is next, the driver who has never gotten onto the podium, and he's not going to really get there with the Kick Sauber car in all honesty. He's a very solid driver, notably getting the Haas of previous years, not a great car, into good points hauls, so I'm looking forward to seeing how he goes. And finally we get Gabriel Bortoleto, F2 champion of last year, driving alongside Hülkenberg. And given the support of Brazilian fans, he's already being lauded as the next Ayrton Senna, and honestly, fair enough. From what I've seen, Bortoleto has a chance to get a few points, and considering the car that he's in, that would be quite an achievement indeed. And additionally, we have Franco Colapinto, the second coming of Christ according to his Argentine fans. Look, I like him, but his fans are so incredibly toxic. Like, he would get a P17 in a Williams, and his fans would be screaming Senna, Alonso, Hamilton, Schumacher, and it's like, no. You may have noticed that I put a number 21 next to his name, and that's because it is heavily favoured to replace Doohan at Alpine because of those Argentine dollars. Like, I can't not talk about him, but I just think that the other drivers need a chance. Yes, Colapinto did well, but he also didn't do well. So really, I have no idea where all the fans are thinking that like he's like the next coming of Christ from. So then, those were the teams and drivers. But to complete this quick guide to Formula 1 for the new viewers, let's talk about the 24 feature races and 6 sprint races. But briefly, all of these races have qualifyings before them, which work by basically just going the fastest around the track, with Q1 knocking out the slowest 5 drivers, Q2 the next 5, and Q3 setting the top 10, which can produce some interesting results sometimes given circumstances. Race 1 this season is expected to start at Melbourne, a typical start. Here we see all the cars in full running condition, and the circuit is fairly decent. With a few DRS zones, it is a place that has a lot of speed and action, as 2023 had 2 red flag incidents, home race for Doohan and Piastri. Shanghai is next, and with a long straight, one of the longest on the calendar, it could be quite a bit of an interesting experience at this hairpin. Notable for this track was that it was Zhou Guanyu's home race, former racing driver for Kick Sauber, where he had a special podium spot just for him. This race has a sprint race and sprint qualifying. Suzuka is our next race, iconic for the 130R corner, sweeping S-bends. It is actually quite exciting indeed, and the home race for Tsunoda. And because of the Japanese fans, it could cause quite a number of passionate fans. Like, let's look at the helmet designs that the people just walk in with. Like, that's good dedication. We should have more of that. Mount Fuji, the former Japan F1 circuit, used to be the season finisher, generating interesting results, such as the case of Niki Lauda giving up a championship in this race back in 1976 to James Hunt. Pre-season testing takes place at Bahrain, and we come back here for race 4, a circuit that is a fine circuit, but can be a bit disinteresting in places. Really not a lot to say for the circuit, it just kind of exists. Saudi Arabia just over the border, we come to Jeddah. And honestly, the circuit is actually quite a good one, generating a lot of speed and a circuit that has a lot of corners, probably the most on the whole calendar. Quite a good race, safety car chance is high. Miami is our next race, the first of the 3 USA races, and this one is rightfully lauded as the worst one. Being Miami, we get a lot of celebrities that don't know anything about the sport, cameos by very problematic people, and a race that just isn't interesting. Sprint race also features this weekend. Imola is the next track, the first of the 2 Italian tracks, with an official circuit name that is ridiculously long. Famously the track that saw the death of Ayrton Senna back in 1994, a track that was called off in 2023 due to flooding, with the race in 2024 being exceptionally boring. We now jump to Monaco, the home race for Charles Leclerc, and this circuit is notoriously boring, not because of bad layout per se, but for how wide the streets are, and how wide the cars are. With the current cars, qualifying is far more interesting as overtaking does not happen here at this circuit. The only real time Monaco gets interesting is when it rains, but it doesn't really rain that often. Leclerc has tried to win here numerous times, always getting screwed over until 2024 finally. One of the oldest tracks on the calendar, having been there since 1950. Barcelona is our next track, the Spanish circuit having been the host of preseason testing before it got moved to Bahrain. Not a lot to say for this circuit outside of home race for Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso, as the circuit can be a bit boring. Now we swim across the Atlantic to Montreal, a jump that is quite baffling given F1 wants to be carbon neutral by 2030. The circuit is a fun one for famously a really long race due to safety cars and crashes back in 2007. Home race for Lance Stroll. We now jump back across the Atlantic to Spielberg in Austria, aka the Red Bull Ring. With a circuit that is the shortest on the calendar, fights and battles here can be quite interesting, such as Verstappen and Norris last year. Famously where the 5 seconds for Ocon meme comes from, due to drivers going out of the circuit boundaries numerous times in 2023 and 2024. Silverstone, the UK, home to Norris, Albon, Hamilton, Russell and Bierman, is the oldest track on the calendar, having been the first ever race of the first ever F1 season back in 1950. And this is a track that is really good. It has enough corners and straights for famous battles, as well as chances for a certain someone to sneak around 2 drivers while fighting. Totally not British bias for myself by saying this is one of my favourite tracks. Spa, from the French Rye country of Belgium, is situated in the Ardennes region, so rain is very common at this track. With famous porn appearings of Eau Rouge going into Raidillon, excitement can be found here in plenty. One of the longest tracks on the calendar has a sprint race in here as well. Budapest, Hungary is next, with a circuit that has an interesting layout, but myself can be a bit boring. Has a bit of controversy of Valtteri Bottas, former driver for Mercedes and Sauber, going bowling, and Oscar Piastri getting his first win by dubious methods. An alright circuit, but lower on the list. Zandvoort, Netherlands, country that gave us the Flying Dutchman himself, Max Verstappen. And oh boy, when he wins here, the track goes absolutely orange from the flares. A really neat circuit with lots of turns and banked corners. Overtaking opportunities are fun here, the most overtaking opportunities of all of the tracks in the F1 season. Now we come back to Italy, Monza, the home race for Ferrari, and if Ferrari wins here, just look at the crowds. A circuit that has long straights and small corners. Speed is very high across this circuit. A highlight of the calendar, honestly. Baku, Azerbaijan is next, and it's actually quite an interesting track, one of the few tracks that are street based and are actually good. With a very long back straight and a very tight first corner, overtaking can be fun here, just don't do a Ricciardo and Verstappen. Yet another highlight for the calendar. Singapore, one of our relatively newer circuits, takes place fully at night because of the humidity and temperature of Singapore during the day. A really good circuit, but can be a touch bit boring during the middle, notably because of the removal of a few corners for a straight that isn't 100% needed in my opinion. Austin, USA houses our next race and sprint race with a long straight and tight first corner. Action can be commonly found at this circuit, and it is a very fun circuit to watch. Not much to say, I just think it's neat. Mexico City, Mexico is where we go next, and because of its high altitude, the fastest speeds can be found here. And for some reason, an RB or Red Bull car goes flying first corner here for some reason. Maybe it might repeat here again, who knows. An alright circuit. Sao Paulo, Brazil. Yep, this is the best circuit on the Formula 1 calendar. I'm not taking any questions, it's the best one. Fitted within quite a tight area, it has enough corners and straights to give a fun spectacle, and of the race last year running in the rain, a whole bunch of stuff happened that could be best shown by the image on screen. I'm not joking, this is actually just a fraction of what happened. We had did not finishes, did not starts, disqualifieds, red flags, yellow flags, crashes, Max going from P17 to P1, a double Alpine podium. It it was absolutely insane. Like, I feel like watching that race live sort of made me feel a little bit ill. It was one of those sort of races. Honestly, if there was one circuit that I could go to, it's this one, hands down. A sprint race happens at this venue as well, home race for Gabriel Bortoleto. Las Vegas, USA sees our final USA race, and yes, this track looks like a pig. It is the newest circuit on the calendar, but it hasn't escaped controversy over the years due to various incidents. More glamour than racing, although speeding down the strip is iconic. Doha, Qatar houses the penultimate race and the final sprint race of the calendar, and it's an alright circuit. Incidents and crashes have occurred here, but not a lot else to talk about. Abu Dhabi, UAE houses our final F1 race, and it's not exactly a great one to end on. It's an alright circuit, but not one that I like watching. The straights are long, but not a lot else to go with. Brazil used to be the final circuit until this one was replaced because of the sweet oil dollars. A minor detail of note is how pit stops work, which require each driver to change their tyre compounds at least once per race. Different tyres with different pros and cons to each, which is done by stopping, getting raised up, tyre off, tyre on, and off they go again back into the fray. Sometimes we can see interesting strategy calls by pit stops, and sometimes we get Monacos. Quite a number of Monacos. The reason behind the Monaco nickname is because of Valtteri Bottas holding the world record for longest pit stop unofficially over 40 hours before they took the wheel off. That's all the teams, drivers, and circuits discussed. But there is a way to feel a part of the action as well. Basically, it's called Formula Fantasy. Basically, if you have an account on F1 TV, which by the way, you could get a free account just to play the F1 Fantasy, you can have up to 3 teams with $100 million budgets each, and you can pick 5 drivers and 2 F1 teams to fill up your list. This can be quite fun with friends and family, and optimal strategy can get a lot of points in sprint races, which will definitely get you a lot. Here is a breakdown of all the possible ways for points, and my advice for new runners of F1 Fantasy based upon my experience is to pick constructors, like aka pick McLaren and Ferrari, then figure out the rest of it, because constructors get more points than drivers, because the constructors basically take both the points of the drivers combined. But do note, payment is required to watch the races live, not required for F1 Fantasy. So that wraps up this Formula 1 guide, and if all is scheduled, the Australian GP will be starting soon. So I shall see you in the next video, possibly recapping the GP if demand is high enough for it here. This video is meant to be viewed as just a guide. If things change due to certain events, you'll find out in the next video of these race recaps. Until we meet again, like, share, subscribe, comment, do the things that YouTube tells me to tell you. Take care folks, goodbye.